We're going to do stocks to watch for this week. It is already almost 3 o'clock in the morning here, getting ready for the trading day. If of course, for those interested, feel free to subscribe onto my Twitter. I do post plays sometimes during the middays or like levels to watch for. So of course, feel free to hit subscribe on that. We're going to be going over plays for the coming week. So as I said before in my last video, I'm already in things like Carnival Cruise, Palantir, Slack Technologies, NIO. I'll be looking at NIO, Workhorse. So there's a lot of things that are going to see some movement. Like I said, we'll start with Palantir. All right, so Palantir, just looking at support and resistances, we can see just looking at the chart that there's a 1350 resistance with what looks like a $16 support with what looks like a $16 resistance. While the stock, of course, did intraday move to 17, it did not close at that point, which is what matters. When you're looking at a stock on the daily chart, it matters where the stock closed, not where the stock went to during the day. Where the stock went to during the day just lets you know that the opportunity for the stock to go back there is possible. But in terms of where the stock closed, there were enough sellers and not enough buyers to maintain above $16, right? Because the stock closed close to it, showing that we do have enough buyers that are looking to get into the stock, but not necessarily quite enough. So this is on the 5-minute chart, so you can see that right here, right? You can see on 1, 2, and on 3 occasions where the stock hit 16 and then subsequently backed off. The high of the day, of course, for Friday was 16. So we're going to look for Palantir to retest that 16. I'm only long about 92 shares, but my price point is 1467 in the stock. So if we see a break above 16 and a hold, especially if the stock closes above 16, I'll probably grab a little bit more. Maybe I'll grab an additional, 10, 15, 25 shares. I'm not really looking to get in a lot. I'm not quite sure where it's going to go. But for me, I am looking to scale out a little bit at 17, as I know that more than likely the stock will pull back on a retest of 17, at least intraday. At least intraday, the stock will pull back at 17s. I'm okay grabbing 2.5 points on an overnight play. That is fine by me. But like I said, if a close above 16 means that the stock will, of course, trade higher. So that's what we'll be looking for during the week. Over the past 1, 2, or actually, excuse me, this is on the 5-minute. So looking at it on the daily, on the daily chart, you can see that for the most part, it's held above 1450, right? So these are just the price points that you're going to want to watch for. This is, of course, on the daily chart. The other stock that I am looking to get into is CCL. I am long CCL. CCL, as you can see, looking at the chart, we did have quite a bit of a pullback, but we did bounce off of the 20-day. The reason, of course, the stock looks like it slid down because it was overextended on the 200-day. And of course, there really wasn't good enough news to propel the stock up. This is basically what we refer to as a dead cat bounce, but it doesn't mean, of course, that the stock can't trade higher. Like I said, I'm along 170 shares from 1570. I'm looking for the stock to trade higher. I do see some resistance right here. You can see it right here. Basically, through across this line, we bounced off of this price point at 16, and then we had a little bit of resistance again at around 18. It may be where the stock trades over the next couple of days. The market, of course, looks like we're showing a gap up so far. Futures are up 261, so we could see this stock move up another point. I may or may not take my out. Just saying things to look for over the next couple of days. These are typically the stocks where you're going to see a lot of reaction in the market, because these are the stocks that have been impacted by the virus. And of course, now with the news of the Pfizer vaccine, we're going to see a bit more movement and transition into a lot of these depressed stocks. Another stock, of course, that I'll be keeping my eye on is, of course, Workhorse. Workhorse is another stock. Just looking at it, as you can see, it's been based roughly around 1450, and what looks like we have a little bit of resistance at the $20 mark. We did hit above $20, but the stock did not close above $20, and we saw that right here. In the exact same day, the stock basically pulled down. So around $20 is where we're seeing a little bit of resistance in the stock. We're seeing what looks like might be a little bit of support right here, right? As you can see, this is where the stock hit once and twice again over here, and we saw a little bit of a pullback right here from that exact same price point. You see a little bit of bouncing right here over these 3 trading days, and we see the stock retesting that exact same price point here, here, and basically here, and starting here. And then of course, even though we broke down below hitting the 20-day, the stock was able to close above basically that line. So looking at around that $19 is showing where we're seeing some resistance. We could see the stock move. Where would I think the stock probably is going to meet resistance would be right here. This is probably where we're going to see our next level of resistance, where we had a little bit of movement to the downside right here. We had what looks like 3 trading days where the stock basically bounced off of that $22 mark, and we see the exact same thing basically in this candlestick to the downside, this candlestick right here, here, and of course here. And then finally at intraday, we see the stock broke this level, obviously tested it intraday, and we see the exact same thing where the stock basically stopped at about that $19 price point, had 2 days of bouncing, and then retested 16s. That's basically what I'm looking for. And then of course NIO, I'm sure many people will be looking at NIO. They have earnings coming up on Tuesday. Gonna have to wait and see what looks like a price point of right here of roughly, what is this, $38, right? Oh, it's not coming up. So it looks like we're seeing $38 is basically where NIO has been hovering over the past couple of days. This was the push to break it. We finally did. We see a retest day and another retest day, and then of course the market traded higher. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 days before the stock was able to break out. And then of course we see a lot of selling. So we could see the stock roll and retest and then bounce off of 38. It's basically what I'm looking for. I don't have a lot. I've got 15 shares, but I'm long from 43.75. Intraday, of course, I had no more day trading options. I was up 2.5 points on the stock, on the position that I had, but of course I couldn't get out. And this account is primarily, that I'm talking about on my Webull account, is dedicated to swinging with a couple of day trades here and there, as I don't have 25K in the account. But basically looking at the stock, you can see that for the past couple of days right there, basically hit above this price point, what looks like about $44. We hit it once, twice, 3 times on this update where we finally broke out, and you see the exact same thing here in this candlestick where even though it did flush it down, but at the end of the day the buyer stepped in, maintaining that $44 price point. You're gonna have to wait and see. This is basically what I'm going to be looking for in terms of the long term. Like I said in my last video, that I will be putting more money into things like ExxonMobil and Wells Fargo, which is what I'm going to be doing over the next couple of days, and then basically transitioning out of things that I really don't see that I'm going to be able to earn the sort of percent return. So I think I can earn probably at least 30 to 50% on between ExxonMobil and Wells Fargo. I really don't see myself being able to do that within stocks like Nvidia and Amazon over the next, I would say, 3 months. I don't see that happening. And so that's why I'm selling out of these positions, because they're really not doing anything for me. 2, I really don't have enough money in the play, and I'm not really looking to add a lot into things like Amazon and Nvidia. So ExxonMobil pays a dividend, as well as Wells Fargo. I think we'll see some upside movement into, this is basically my recovery sort of play. Like I said in my last video, I'm looking to put roughly $10,000 into these 4 stocks: ExxonMobil, JetBlue, Dave & Buster's, and Wells Fargo. Those are basically the 4 that I want to dedicate $10,000 to basically over the next month or so, maybe in the next 2 months, depending upon how much cash flow I have and whether or not I may reallocate funds from one account to the other, just to take advantage of what I think will be some decent moves. That's basically, oh, excuse me, one more play. DXC. I have no idea what this company does, but I came across the chart looking at it. And just from a technical analysis standpoint, I will say that the stock looks like it does have ability to move to about the $26 mark. We have seen resistance, what looks like at about $20. We saw a breakout on volume to the upside to about 22 and change. And then of course it hit the 200-day moving average. And then of course the stock came back down. It came back down, retested previous lows, bounced off of those lows, came right back down to retest this low, and of course fell short as buyers started to step in. Earnings were not good at all. But again, we're not long-term investors in this stock. I'm looking for the play, which is typically going to be from 20 to 26. We might see a little bit of resistance here again at 2250, but I might just buy some options on this stock. Might buy maybe 1 or 2 calls at maybe 21s or 20s. I got to see what's basically available. But as you can see, looking at the stock, that the sell volume is actually average. As you can see, the average volume is about 3.1, and basically over the past 3 days, we've had nothing but basically average selling going on, but the stock hasn't traded to the downside below $20. It's basically held this level, which of course it couldn't hold before, right? It couldn't hold this level here before, and now we're seeing, despite 3 days of selling, we're seeing that the stock is able to hold, that there's enough buyers coming in. We saw the exact same thing right here. We saw a huge move to the downside on above average volume. As you can see, the average volume is 3.4. The volume on that day was 4.8. So we saw above average selling, probably in relation to the earnings call. Maybe it was a little bit of maybe it was a shakeout. It couldn't even break below the retest right here. So more than likely what happened is we see a big shakeout to the downside, bunch of buyers stepped in, and now we're basically going to be channeling our way up. Another stock to look for, DXC. And then of course on the small little resistance would be right here, which is where I see a small resistance here at roughly about $24, where the stock meandered for 1, 2, 3, 4 days before it finally broke below that $24. So we could see a move between 20 and 24. And then of course your next level of resistance would be right around here at 28. Just basically going to take a look at it over the next week and see how it moves. Also, the stock is trading, as you can see, the stock is now trading above the 200-day. So those are all good buy indicators between trading above the 200-day. More buy volume than sell volume, and then of course the stock is not selling off even on average volume. Those are basically the plays that I'm going to be looking at for, I guess, this whole week. The other thing I did say last time that I do have a call, I do have a put. I have 1 14 put on JetBlue. I have 2 on Canopy Growth, 2 puts that I bought at the end of the day when the stock was about 24.30. I bought 2 puts. Gonna have to wait and see. This is basically like my anti-Biden pick for presidency. If any news comes out that hurts him in any way, shape, or form, stocks that, of course, like Canopy Growth and wheat stocks that may benefit off of his presidency, we will see a bit of a slide. I am still short, of course, Mattel. I believe that put option does not expire till the 27th. So I am short at 14 on this stock. As you can see, just looking at the chart, you can see how many times the stock has basically traded to 1450, which is why I went short. Looking at the stock currently at the end of the day, the stock did have a sell-off. There was a little bit of selling that went on. So the stock is now trading below 1350, right? We might see a slow slide to about the $13 mark as basically, and I think that's it. I think that's those all. Of course, like I said, I have a workhorse call. No, excuse me. I have a slate call. I have a slate 26, I believe there. Yeah, I have a 26 call that expires at the end of this week. So I'm gonna have to wait and see. These are some of the plays that I'm basically gonna be looking at for the week. Hope trading is good for you. Of course, feel free to check me out. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great trading week.